Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's tutorial is based on June by Tchaikovsky from The Seasons. Beautiful set of 12 pieces. We'll get into a little bit of the background on how this work came to be. But I thought I would go ahead and play the first 22 bars of the piece before we dive into the background and then the tutorial portion of the video. Okay, we'll just go to there. This piece is so wonderful. I've actually never performed this or even learned it until just this past week or so. I've taught it so many times over the years, and many people have been requesting this piece for a pro practice tutorial, and I had a great time learning it and diving into many of the different elements of the piece. Just a little bit on the background. A man by the name of Nikolai Bernard commissioned Tchaikovsky to write for his musical periodical Le Nouvellist, or the Nouvellist, in St. Petersburg. And he was going to publish a new piece at the first of each month. This collection of works was written by Tchaikovsky between December 1875 and May 1876. So from what we can tell, there's a lot of information that's been lost about the process of how these pieces came to be. But from what we can tell, he wrote small batches of them, not one per month, sending them to Bernard. Bernard later published in 1876 the whole cycle as The Seasons, and he published it as Opus 37. Now, Tchaikovsky's publisher, hopefully I'm saying this right, Jurgenson, Jurgenson, usually assign the opus numbers, and Tchaikovsky's Grand Sonata is Opus 37. At the time of publication, there wasn't given, the Opus 37 wasn't given, but later Bernard had published the whole thing as Opus 37. So when Jurgenson later published or purchased the rights to The Seasons, he published it as Opus 37 bis, B-I-S, and other publishers label it Opus 37a. This Henley edition, it's Opus 37b. So it's just to distinguish it from the Grand Sonata, which is Tchaikovsky's Opus 37. There's a beautiful little epigraph. Tchaikovsky didn't write these, and I believe Bernard was very well read in Russian literature and poetry, and I believe it was him who suggested these epigraphs at the beginning of each of these pieces. So for June, the Barcarolle is a short snippet by Alexei Pleshev. I hope I say that right. It says, "Let us go to the shore. There the waves will kiss our legs. With mysterious sadness, the stars will shine down on us." So as you can see, this, I would usually think, oh, maybe this is like October when things are starting to get darker and more chilly, but there is beauty in the middle, very innocent, playful beauty. jovial spirits, almost resolute, but it is encompassed by this sadness. And with mysterious sadness, the stars will shine down on us. So there's definitely a mixture of emotion in this piece. So with all of that background, let's go ahead and dive into some of my thoughts on the piece. I've listened to many recordings. I do have to say I found the most inspiration from Pletnev's recordings. One of my teachers, Sergei Babayan, studied with Pletnev, and he said he watched him at the International Tchaikovsky competition when he was a young boy play, and he said it was unforgettable. And I love Pletnev's playing of this piece. It's very creative. It's very dry at the end, which is quite different from a lot of recordings. So he'll do a lot of things like so whether you agree with those choices or not, I would suggest everyone go listen to many recordings and give Pletnev's recording a listen, because I think there is so much creativity with Rubato. The way he breaks up his phrasing is quite unique. So you'll hear definite breaks, not consistently every time, but things like this, as if that's one idea, and then an afterthought. And the way he bends time is very unique. I've always admired that with Pletnev's playing, especially his shorter pieces like Scarlatti sonatas. They're so refreshing and creative. So having said that, I have some opinions of my own about this, about tempo, about pedaling usage, about some inner voices that you might explore. We see that the overall form of this piece is we have this A section, and then we have this B section, which poco più mosso, a little more motion. And then we see a return to this with some embellishing. And then at the end, the 83 could be the end. So we almost have this little codetta, which is absolutely gorgeous from 83 to the end. So as you have material, as you would in a classical sonata that comes back, you always want to be thinking, what can I do a little bit differently? So we'll get into some of the inner lines that I've thought maybe we could bring out a bit. Also some differences in expression. I have the pedal cam down there to show you what I'm doing, because this piece also lends itself to a lot of advanced pedaling techniques if you choose to do that, which I think is a good idea. So feathering out the pedal, meaning slowly release until the dampers are just about hitting the strings, and then you can do little miniature pedal changes or gradually come off. What we don't want to do is kind of have this, what pianists often refer to as a lead foot. So like down really hard, up really hard. We want to make sure that we're very refined with our pedal. Okay, one of my biggest pet peeves to start with. Do not rush your half notes. So I can't stand it when pianists go like this and students. That bugs me so much. This is a thought that needs to be suspended. And then you can open up. This piano is quite unique. You can still get very soft on this piano. I love this piano. This is my favorite piano. That's why we bought it. Hamburg Steinway from 1975. And it's very bright, though. So on these recordings, I have those mics in the piano turned down a little so you can hear my voice. But what you're not hearing is, on the recording most likely, is how gentle I have to be in order to get this separation. And then I'm playing much louder here. If you're playing a much more colorful piano, like perhaps like a New York Steinway or a voiced down Yamaha or Kawai, whatever it might be. Different piano, it doesn't matter the brand, it matters the condition of the hammers. And if it's much more colorful, you won't have to be quite as diligent getting this soft, but you'll have to be more diligent playing out. You will lose the magic of this piece if you don't voice it well. Let me show you what I mean. Versus okay, you can see the difference. It becomes three-dimensional. There is space between this very soft left-hand material and this right-hand line. And even within the right hand, make sure you work on your voicing. A little voicing hack that I like to use, or a little exercise, is to play just the top line loud and legato, and then everything else very short and piano. This gets the hand really biased towards that top note, and it allows you to practice playing these very soft. Now, when you're actually playing, we don't want to do staccato because sometimes that can make it ring out more. But after a while of doing that exercise, you'll feel inside your hand and in the fingertip separation between the fingers, better control with voicing. The other thing I want you to pay careful attention to is to always have very legato fingering. That's pretty self-explanatory. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 5, 4, 5, 2. But here, make sure that you choose wisely. 5, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1, 4, and then probably do a 3, 1, even though that's a little open. If your hand absolutely cannot reach that and voice that well, I would go 5, 4, 1. Okay, but we want to make sure that you always have a physical connection. A lot of students get lazy and they say, oh, it's in the pedal, so it's going to be connected anyway. But there is something about how you play something legato in the hand that sounds more connected, even when it's in the pedal, than just going. You're able to match the sound note to note a little better. Okay, let's talk about I'm just going to refer to the pedal cam for pedaling unless I have something really specific. I'm not going to dictate a bunch of pedal to you guys because you can just watch that. Let's talk a little bit about dynamics now. And these steps that I'm going through pedal and then voicing and then dynamics, and then we'll add a little rubato. That's kind of the hierarchy of what I would suggest. If you put in dynamics before you do good voicing, it's going to be really hard to get the voicing back to where you want it. Or if you're putting in all this detail before you even have the notes and the pedaling down, it can be problematic. So I like to kind of go in this order in thinking through things with the student. So one thing I didn't do too much of, you can either do all soft, which is kind of what I did, or you could maybe do just a touch more, just a little, and then even less. What that does is that gives you a little wiggle room so you're not walking on eggshells. Like right there, and like maybe getting ghost notes, maybe a little more, and then less. What that'll do is that will create a nice diminuendo and allow the right hand to shine. So we're going to start pretty soft, louder than the left hand just was, but so I would crescendo to there and then stay pretty big, but that's not your biggest point. I think that's your biggest point. This comes down just slightly, and then crescendo, and then back off, and then crescendo to there, and then back off, with 3 distinct levels. level 3, level 2, level 1. Okay, so notice I didn't say level 2 is all the same, because it can start to sound vertical. So I like to just bookend it with a little crescendo diminuendo, small. Go to there, and then back off, and then go to there, then back off. What that does is very important, is it adds dimension to your playing. Okay, now finally the last step, rubato. Full value. Take a little time. As with the phrasing, you can kind of bookend your the phrasing, like the crescendos, diminuendos we just talked about. You can also bookend phrases, miniature phrases, with little bits of rubato. So let's start a little slower and then ease into our tempo. Ease out slightly, take time. One of the biggest mistakes that students make is they rush moments of stasis. They go, oh, this is boring, and nothing's going on. That's just filling out harmony. So they'll rush that. That is the most important thing to do, is not rush it, so your audience has a moment to contemplate what you just played. Contemplation. And then take time. Now here, this is a little tricky pedaling, so I will dictate this. Pedal, you can come off to create the clarity of that chromatic figure. But then I put the pedal back on for the E flat so I can lift my right hand and then come off for that rest. I'm not a huge stickler in this piece for observing every single rest with pedal release. I think it would get too dry, personally, for my taste. But, see, I think that's too dry. But at the ends of these phrases, I think it is nice to have that clarity of just that bass, which requires you to, put the pedal down so your right hand can release slowly, and then you do a rounded pedal off. Okay, now, I'm not going to get that detailed with every single bar of the piece. We'll be here all day. Okay, but I wanted to give that as an introduction to how I go about shaping and refining small phrases, okay? I'll be a little bit more broad now going forward, okay?